Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Skull Session Recruiting Podcast brought to you by BuckeyeHuddle.com. I am Mark Givler, joined by Kevin Noon today. Big week for Ohio State, both in recruiting and with their camp evaluations. So we're going to dive into some of the headlines of the week. Tavian St. Clair in the class, quarterback, had a tremendous 7-on-7 camp on Wednesday, and also threw at Ohio State on Tuesday after throwing the previous week. So he has been quite a fixture at Ohio State camps this month, but obviously commits to the Buckeyes after the 7-on-7 camp. We kind of got an epic showdown there in the final between him and Ryan Montgomery. Kevin, you've seen St. Clair here a bunch lately. How good was he at the 7-on-7? And just, again, I know we've kind of beat this horse a few times, but just how much better is he than he was a year ago? Just the improvement.
Yeah, and I think that's kind of where you have to start with, just the improvement from last year. And it wasn't like last year that he was not on anybody's radar. I mean, he obviously was on people's radar, but just the step forward he took from last year to this year is significant. And I think that was very important in Ohio State's evaluation of him. He puts on 35, 36 pounds. I mean, he just looks like a different body out there. And, sometimes they say, dress good to feel good, to be good or whatever. I mean, he looked good. So he threw well too. And that's, that was kind of a big thing there. He certainly, was able to show that he could make throws to all three levels. There really wasn't a throw that he wasn't able to make during the 7-on. Now, again, 7-on-7, there's no pass rush, a lot of things of that nature. So it's not exactly a true representation, but in a lot of ways though, too, I think I saw a lot more in 7-on-7 than I did during the Tuesday camp, just because of the drills that they do on the Tuesday camp and some of those types of things. But he really looked like one of the best quarterbacks in the nation to me for the class of 2025. I mean, obviously we're seeing 24s and 25s, been to Elite 11 events, have seen some of the best from around the nation. I would extrapolate what I saw from Tavian during the couple opportunities I had to see him throw, would definitely put him right there with a lot of the guys that I'd seen at the Elite 11 events.
And I'm down here, we're recording this. I'm in Florida. I'm at the Under Armour Future 50 this weekend. Ryan Montgomery is down here. I had a chance to more so off camera talk to Ryan and just kind of get a feel for where things are at there. So I have a small update I can kind of add to this. He told me he had a really good conversation with Ryan Day after the 7-on-7 on Wednesday. So he kind of got a heads up. It sounds like Ohio State kind of did this the right way in terms of giving him a heads up that Tavian was committed or was committing. So, it's tough because I think that's kind of where Ryan envisioned himself. But he and Tavian are actually very close, and he made that very clear that he's very happy for Tavian. And that, the two of them have become really close the past few months. They have some similar schools they've looked at. They've been on camps and visits at the same time. And really mature response here by Ryan Montgomery. Here's the other interesting thing. That's not dead. Do I think he's going to get into the class, and this is going to be a 2-quarterback class of Tavien Sinclair and Ryan Montgomery? I don't think that's how it's going to play out as we sit here today. But he mentioned, they talked to Ryan, and Ryan Day said he would take him. So if Ryan Montgomery wants to continue to pursue things with Ohio State, it sounds like the door has been left open to do that. But my instinct in talking to Ryan Montgomery is that he's going to start to focus on other schools. Miami, Michigan, South Carolina is a big one, and Georgia, Clemson are still in there as well. And I think he's going to see where things go with that group of schools first. And then the kind of the wild card there is, some schools may come out of the woodwork now, like, oh, we didn't even get into the sweepstakes. We just thought he was going to Ohio State the last 2 years, and so he may get some new interest. But I did find it a little interesting that things aren't like dead in the water yet with Ohio State. There's probably some conversations that will continue to occur, especially with Luke Montgomery, his older brother, being on campus and just the bridge there. But that's kind of where things stand now. Sounds like Ohio State would certainly explore a second quarterback in this class if it's Ryan Montgomery. But again, these guys know the deal, and I think generally they want to go and be part of a one-man class, generally speaking. And so I think if Ryan finds a good suitor for him where he can kind of be the man in that class, that's the most likely outcome at this point.
I talked with Tavian a couple hours before he committed. I mean, I think it was we all knew it was coming, but talked to him a couple hours before, and it was asked of him, would you be part of a two-man quarterback class? And he's like, well, wherever I go, anything could happen, but he didn't necessarily see him and Ryan being in the same class. And again, that's not something of where he's going to tell Ohio State, don't do this. I mean, that's not necessarily his place in the public face of it, but it's, what Georgia has done this year with a couple of quarterbacks in its class. That's the exception and not the norm. And, with two guys that have certainly been hyped up through their whole build up into their recruitment of being like, wow, Ohio's got two star quarterbacks this year. I mean, it would just be very surprising if they ended up at the same place. Now, could Ohio State add a second quarterback in the class, maybe somebody who's a little less notable? I mean, potentially that could be there. I mean, it's going to be so hard to maintain quarterback numbers moving forward just with the portal and everything else. And you either have to sit there and kind of have a plan of how you can get two quarterbacks in the class one way or the other, or you're going to have to constantly keep working the portal.
Yeah. So it's again, seems unlikely. I don't know that anyone can really sit here a couple days out here and make any type of assumptions or predictions on what's going to happen, but it feels unlikely right now. So let's revisit this. Let's see how the next, 4 or 5 months go. Let's see what some other prospects do around the country and what opportunities may either, show themselves to Ryan Montgomery or what may go away for Ryan Montgomery, depending on how all the dominoes fall. And, let's see what Ohio State does in terms of, if they continue to try and grow that relationship or if they just kind of, move on. But it sounds like it was handled the right way. It certainly sounds like Ryan is certainly handling this the right way. Ryan Montgomery is certainly handling the right way with just some nice things he said about Tavian to me, and just being very happy for him and how they are very close at this point. So it's not and there's no animosity there. So that was kind of a good conversation I had with Ryan Montgomery here today. Back to the camp stuff. Devin Sanchez, a 5-star cornerback out of Texas, camped on Tuesday at the one-day camp, was absolutely phenomenal. Young Jeff Okudah vibes for me, as he's every bit of 6'2", and boy, can he run. Boy, can he move. Dominated one-on-ones, had 3 reps. One of them, the quarterback didn't even throw the ball. Another one he broke up, almost intercepted. And another one forced a bad throw to the opposite side of the receiver because he had almost ran the post for the kid, and quarterback kind of tried to back shoulder it or whatever, and just it couldn't connect. It was just perfect coverage. So that was as impressive of a camp performance as I saw at Ohio State all month. I thought he was, if I was listing 2 or 3 guys that just emerged, just jumped off the page to me from the entire month, Devin Sanchez would be right near those top 2 or 3, if not the top. Early 5-star. Kevin, did you buy the 5-star label so far?
Absolutely. I mean, and it's amazing that rankings have to come out this far in advance, but that's we've seen everything accelerate, and that's where we are. But this is one of those that I think it was that they were right, in doing that more so than just playing the hype train and whatever. Everybody wants a 6-foot corner. I mean, just imagine with a 6'2" corner. I mean, and this isn't a guy that's just been jammed into the corner position because of necessity, and you want to have your guys in your most notable positions, kind of the way that your best offensive player, especially at a smaller school, ends up a quarterback. I mean, he very much is a corner. I mean, I saw those reps, and he was very impressive. You sometimes go to a camp, especially a camp where you're not wearing uniform numbers or anything along those lines, and you're like, all right, where's the kid I'm looking for? Well, when it came to Devin Sanchez, it was, maybe I didn't know right off the top of my head that was Devin Sanchez, but I'm like, well, this kid is like really good. And then you realize he's a 25, and it's like, oh wow. And when you look at his recruitment, a guy coming out of the greater Houston area, everybody's going to say, well, Texas A&M. I don't know if that's going to be the case. When we talked to him, he seemed like he had more of a national view, which is going to make it more of a Georgia, Alabama, Ohio State type of thing. And again, Ohio State's certainly trying to recapture its magic with BIA. That would certainly be a place to break through. I mean, obviously, people are hoping that Ohio State can break through in the class of 24, but Devin Sanchez would be a huge get if the Buckeyes were able to swing it.
Yeah, just a tremendous player, tremendous athlete. Definite 5-star for me. I could not have been much more impressed. We'll see. They're in on some good 2025 DBs, so we'll see how this all comes together. And but he was an absolute star for me. And then another interesting guy, and I think things got a little messed up there. I think it was a very difficult day for QBs and receivers on Tuesday. The wind was really gusting. So we saw a lot of offline throws and wind taking balls. But I really liked watching Luca Gilbert run around, the 2025 tight end from Lakota West here in Southwest Ohio. He's got the early offer. Called Keenan Bailey the most electric coach in the country. Keenan Bailey, Ohio State young tight ends coach, is the most electric coach in the country. It is not Ryan Day. It is not Lincoln Riley. It is not Kirby Smart or Nick Saban. It is Keenan Bailey, the most electric coach in the country. I think he said it like 6 times, so he must really mean it. Keenan's been doing a great job recruiting for Ohio State since getting the job. When Kevin Wilson left for Tulsa, he's got them in the mix for some guys that, quite frankly, I'm not sure they would have been in the mix for in years past. He's really in on some national tight end targets, which I think is interesting. But Luca's at 6'7", and I think the thing I liked about he's a basketball kid, so I like the athleticism. But you hear like 6'7" basketball kid, and you're like, oh, he's just like a big receiver. He's gonna be soft. This, that. He told me he actually likes blocking more than receiving. I'm like, well, I don't know if I believe you, but that's a great thing to say. So I really liked what I saw out of him athletically. I think he's a year or two, just physically, he's growing into his body. He's getting better at the game. But just as far as like a block of clay that you can mold, I think he's a very high ceiling prospect.
Yeah, you're right in terms of the pass catching. It was a windy day. It really was causing some fits for some guys out there. But I've seen other clips of him, and I know that he's capable of doing things. Yes, he has a couple of years to grow into his body, but again, another guy, you look at him, you're like, all right, I see it. This guy has got the trappings of being something special. And you talk about Keenan Bailey's recruiting and him going after national guys. Let's not forget that he was, in his previous role at Ohio State, was assisting Brian Hartline in terms of receiver recruiting, and just the amount of success that they had there. And a lot of players, including Brandon Ennis and guys like that, had always thrown out a credit to Keenan Bailey. I mean, Keenan Bailey certainly has been a dynamic recruiter. Luca Gilbert, 6 times of the most electrifying coach out there. That's a lot right there. But I think that he's going to be somebody that is going to really help Ohio State in terms of that position, because not taking anything away from where Kevin Wilson was in terms of being the tight end recruiter, but he'd been a head coach before. And, head coach recruiting versus position coach recruiting is very different. It's in a lot of ways can still be a young man's game out there. And Keenan Bailey is still quite young in terms of the coaching profession. And I think he's going to land some big ones along the way. Luca Gilbert being already in state, I already like Ohio State's chances there, but long ways to go.
Yeah, and kind of two interesting thoughts there. It wasn't talking to Luca. You mentioned Keenan Bailey's background before he got the tight ends job, and Luca mentioned that actually, like that he had previously been a receivers coach, and Luca feels like he needs to work more on the receiving end of the tight end position than the blocking end. So he was very excited about that and how Keenan Bailey can help him with his route running and just body control and just different drills he can do with Keenan Bailey to improve as a pass catcher. And so that was one thing. And then the other thing, as you were saying it, it kind of like popped into my head. It's like, what you're saying with his background and what Kevin Wilson's background. So Kevin Wilson's background is that of like an offensive line coach. He actually, kind of cut his teeth there. He was big in the Trent Williams development at Oklahoma. And so it's very fascinating. Now, we watched Kevin Wilson, a lot of the guys he recruited, not all of them, but a lot of them were kind of block first, pass catching second. And I think you're seeing Keenan Bailey coming from, so you're seeing the offensive line guy want kind of like a sixth offensive lineman that can catch the ball occasionally. And you're seeing the wide receiver guy take a guy who's a receiver who's going to, grow into a blocker, get better at blocking down the road. So it is we are seeing, I think, a little different philosophies from the two, and it makes sense given their backgrounds. So that might be something to watch here as Damarian Witten's on campus this weekend. Let's jump into that for 1 minute. Let's spend a couple minutes here before we wrap this up. Big visit weekend again. I was talking to a colleague today for Marcus Hartman from the Dayton Daily News, and he asked me if this was the biggest weekend of the month. And I said, well, that kind of depends on your perspective. I said, I think last weekend had maybe a larger quantity of national star power. If we just look at look at the rankings, I think last week probably had more of the 5-star guys, but so biggest, I think, is kind of up to interpretation. I would argue this one might be more important. This is all about Ohio. Like, yes, I know before the comment, I know Justin Scott's on campus this weekend and they need defensive tackle. Like, I get that, but let's make no mistake about it. This weekend is about keeping the Ohio kids home. This is about Bryce West, Aaron Scott, and Damarian Witten, and not losing, 3 prospects that you've had leads for really the whole way, not losing Aaron Scott and Bryce West to Michigan. You've had enough secondary stuff the last couple of years since Jeff Hafley left, where you're trying to get back to where you were in the secondary. And, more than anything, how many opportunities are you going to have over the next 10 years where Ohio is going to give you 2 top 100 corners? That's unusual. That's not a common thing. So that's kind of how I worded it to Marcus. I'm like, look, I think if you just strictly look at a piece of paper and say which weekend was bigger, I think you would say last weekend was bigger with all the 5-star kids they had, Edric Houston, KJ Bolden, all those guys. But this one, again, I think might be more important. What do you think, Kevin? What do you think about, just the tone of this weekend versus last weekend?
Yeah, I agree 100% about the importance of landing the in-state guys, holding on to them. I mean, obviously, with KVA being here, the linebacker out of California, and Miles Lockhart, the corner out of Arizona, there's a lot of importance there too. I think, though, that this is the week where you have to hit the highest percentage, and these are the guys that you're supposed to get. You're supposed to be able to make these, these bunnies right here, and then nobody wants to sit there and be like, I went through my full process. I thought this all through. I mean, I wasn't just going to go to Ohio State because that was the rooting interest growing up. But, there certainly has been a lot of resistance in terms of other schools recruiting Weston Scott as hard as they have, and Demarion Witten still getting a lot of people believing a lot of stuff about Kentucky and so on and so forth. So there's a lot of perception there. These are guys that you don't necessarily want to have to play against. I mean, I guess if you end up Kentucky, the chances of that are very slim, but you certainly don't want them escaping up north to to Michigan. And, I think that as Ohio State is still trying to recapture its footing as being a program that recruits on the highest of levels in the secondary, this would be very embarrassing if they missed out on either of them. If they missed out on both of them, I mean, the groundswell would be just horrible. I mean, and there obviously are some other options out there in terms of, Miles Lockhart, Ryan Nichols, some other guys that certainly are in the mix. But these are guys that you have to land. So the importance really is going to be there. And again, Justin Scott, KVA, these other guys, yeah, you certainly want to land them. I mean, what are they doing at linebacker? The necessity always of interior defensive linemen, all very, very important. But if you can't protect your borders, especially if the perception gets out there that you can't protect your borders to Michigan, we're not that far removed from when things were really going the wrong way in the rivalry, and they were coming into Ohio and beating Ohio State straight up for a kid. I mean, it's been a long time since Michigan has beat Ohio State straight up for a kid that Ohio State highly coveted. Ohio State highly covets these two corners. So that's why this is going to be so important.
Yeah, and this is not a situation. I think there are some people out there, if they get one, it's fine. I don't think Ohio State feels that way. I think Ohio State feels they have to get both of these guys. And I like their chances to do that, but it's, they've got to connect. They got to hit the right notes on the visit and lock this down. I think they're going to really push to get this, get all these Ohio kids, not just to land them ultimately, but I think they're going to push to get these guys locked in here, pretty soon. I think all three of these guys will be deciding here, maybe in the next month or so. So it's crunch time in these recruiting processes. I will finish it out. I think Justin Scott's a tough pull. I think they got a lot of ground to make up there. Georgia, USC, there's several schools, Notre Dame, there's several schools in there. I think that's a lot. They're in a horse race right now, and they got to pass, I think, multiple horses down the stretch. I think that's going to be tough. We'll see how it goes. They certainly can get Miles Lockhart. If you get good vibe, if Aaron Scott and Bryce West tell you they're both in this weekend, what do you do there? Now, I think they can take 4. I think they're going to try to take 4. But does that throw something off? Whether it's, well, you're going to get the Ohio kids, and then, gosh, there's still Ryan Nichols, and boy, Kobe Black had a pretty good visit last week. Like, where do things stand there? So that could lead to maybe some other decisions. And maybe if you're Miles, you're looking at like, oh gosh, they just took 2 Ohio kids. Am I, where do I fit now? So I think there's a lot of things to still play out with Miles Lockhart, but I think this weekend will be a good indicator of that. Maybe whether it's him just coming out and either committing to Ohio State this weekend, like I think we're going to know like the trajectory of that one here in the next few days. Like I think we're going to know, they're getting the Ohio kids and now something's awry with Miles Lockhart, or like, this is all, full steam ahead. They're going to get Miles. So I think we'll know the trajectory there. I like their chances with Kingston Viliamu-Asa. I really do. It's Notre Dame, USC, and Ohio State right now. A lot of people, maybe smarter than me, think it's Ohio State or Notre Dame. I would agree with that. But there has always been a fascination for me from where I stand with KVA and Ohio State. He's just been to campus so many times for a kid flying the entire way across the country on his own dime. Now he's coming back to the official. They went through coaching changes on defense. They went through linebacker coaching changes. The kid kept visiting. I think all he wanted was to feel a sense of stability at his position in this program. And James Laurinaitis is now providing that. So I really like Ohio State's chances there. And I think they're the team to beat right now. And I think, again, I think they can push themselves over the edge here with a really good visit this weekend.
Yeah, I mean, I think that, the one unifying thing between Notre Dame and Ohio State was James Laurinaitis. He was at Notre Dame and now he's at Ohio State. So when Laurinaitis makes the move to Columbus, I mean, that certainly has to, help Ohio State's chances, but it'll be interesting too to see how the linebacker pieces fall. I mean, they've already got Peyton Pierce. I mean, what do you consider Garrett Stover? You've got Nicholas Rodriguez waiting in the wings, the St. Thomas Aquinas out of Florida linebacker who, again, how do you sit there and say we're going to take 4 linebackers or however many when you only play 2? So there are a lot of interesting pieces, but yeah, I mean, I certainly think that just with a player coming out of St. John Bosco, that Ohio State certainly has enough track record, enough history, and there are people from Bosco on campus every year. I mean, just how it works, and they make long extended trips. These aren't, well, we're just passing through type of visits. These are fact finding, hard decisions to make. And Ohio State doesn't go 100% out of Bosco, but nobody does. But I think that this one is shaping up in the right direction, but to be seen.
Yeah, I've been out to Bosco enough over the years to know that Ohio State's very well respected there. Again, they don't get every Bosco kid they want, but they've been doing well enough there. And if they get KVA, we see what happens with Peyton Woodyard, who I'm told is still very serious about Ohio State coming out of his official visit there last week. So some interesting stuff there to watch. We will have coverage of it throughout the weekend into next week. Again, I'm at Future 50 right now, so I will be at Future 50 on Saturday. Will be the big camp day, so I'll have a ton of stuff from that. I've already interviewed a bunch of guys. Those will be up on the website. Please check out BuckeyeHuddle.com for those, or YouTube.com/BuckeyeHuddle for some of the video interviews we'll have, and we'll have some highlights as well from the camp. Yeah, it's a great time to sign up for BuckeyeHuddle.com right now. Recruiting is about to really take off as far as big decisions coming up. I think it's going to be a big 6 to 8 weeks of recruiting marathon, and then the season's here. So it's a great time to sign up at BuckeyeHuddle.com and have access to all of our great staff. But we appreciate everyone watching and listening to this. And we'll hit you with another episode actually pretty quickly. I think you might get 2 days in a row this week, I think. So thanks everyone, and we'll talk to you later.